Hey, sweetie, about Christmas this year. We're tight on space. The twins are bringing their partners, and we're setting up the air mattress for Grandpa. It's just not ideal to add one more. Hope you understand. That was it. No cull. No warmth. Just those 3 sentences. I read it standing by the frozen peas at the grocery store, blinking into the blue light of my phone screen like it might change. Like maybe there was another paragraph I had missed. One with some kind of invitation, or maybe just a trace of regret. But it didn't come, and I just stood there, between the baking aisle and the end-cap display of peppermint bark, trying not to cry in front of a pyramid of canned yams. I didn't go home right away. I walked aimlessly through the aisles like I was on autopilot. The kind of wandering you do when your brain is buzzing, but your body won't let you fall apart. I picked up a candle that smelled like cinnamon and smoke, something called Winter Hearth. I sniffed it, liked it, and put it in my cart. Not because I needed it, just because I wanted to feel like someone in the world deserved warmth. It wasn't until I got home and set it on my kitchen counter that the tears came. Not loud, not sobbing, just quiet, sinking tears. The kind that trail down your cheeks like they're trying to leave without being noticed. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. You'd think that after 23 years of being the afterthought, then maybe next time, oh wait, we forgot to loop you in, I would have built up some kind of callus. But no, somehow it's still scraped raw. My parents have this way of smiling when they cut you out, like it's some kind of kindness. Like they're doing you a favor by sparing you the hassle. There's just no room, Milla. You know how hectic it gets. Yes, I knew. I'd been watching it from the margins my whole life. And yet, stupidly, I'd packed a small suitcase anyway, just in case they changed their mind, just in case someone canceled, just in case they looked around and realized they had one more chair, one more pillow, one more space at the table. They didn't. And so I sat in my house on Christmas Eve, the one I rent with money scraped from tutoring jobs and freelance gigs, lighting a candle called Winter Hearth and listening to the silence echo off the walls. I made soup. From a can. I opened the cheap red wine I'd bought for the occasion. I poured 1 glass and let it sit untouched until it went lukewarm. And I stared at my phone. The screen stayed blank. No check-ins. No miss you. No are you okay? Not even from my siblings, who were too busy posting Instagram photos of matching pajamas and charcuterie boards to wonder where I was. I was supposed to be the strong one. The resilient one. The one who always said, "It's okay. I get it. I'll figure it out." I've been playing that role since I was 12. But that night, I didn't want to be strong. I wanted to be included. I wanted someone to look around the room and say, "Wait, where's Milla?" But no one did. So I turned off the lights. I curled up under my old fleece blanket, and I whispered Merry Christmas to no one. Not because I believed in miracles, but because some part of me, some old, broken, foolish part, still believed that maybe, just maybe, next year would be different. The next morning, I woke up to cold silence. Not even the chirp of a phone notification. I pulled the covers tighter around me, half hoping I could just dissolve into the fabric. But the sun was already slicing through the blinds, sharp, indifferent. It was Christmas morning, and I was alone. I shuffled into the kitchen, the floor icy under my bare feet. The soup pot still sat on the stove, crusted over. My wine glass, half full and untouched, had collected a fine layer of dust in just a few hours. How does that even happen? I stared at the table. Just 1 chair pulled out. 1 mug. 1 bowl. 1 person. The house was quiet, but my thoughts were loud. Loud in the way only absence can be. They used to say I was too sensitive. Milla, don't take everything so personally. Like it wasn't personal that they forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. Like it wasn't personal that my graduation gift was a card signed in pencil. Like it wasn't personal that I was always the first to be asked to sleep on the couch, or the last to be picked up from school, or the one who learned how to braid her own hair because no one had the time. It was always me, the spare part, the adjustable piece, the flexible one. But I kept showing up. Every holiday, every Sunday lunch, every baby shower, every funeral. I showed up with gifts wrapped carefully, even when my bank account screamed at me. I wrote the cards with the long, thoughtful notes. I cleaned the dishes. I offered to bring dessert. Because that's what you do when you love people, right? You give. You forgive. You stay, even when no one saves a seat for you. But Christmas morning, something shifted. Not loudly, not angrily, just a click, like a quiet lock turning in my chest. I made coffee and sipped it in the dark, listening to the sound of the heater struggling against the winter air. It was the loneliest sound I'd ever heard, but it was honest. And I realized something. I hadn't been part of that family in years. Not really. Not since I stopped saying yes to every last-minute favor. Not since I set a boundary and said, I can't make it this time. Not since I started asking, gently, nervously, can we talk about how I'm always left out? They didn't like that. Apparently, love in my family is best served quietly, obediently, and with zero complaints. I wanted to believe they just forgot. That it really was about space. That I'd slipped through the cracks by accident. But the truth was harder. The truth was, I was easy to leave out. Because I had never made a fuss. Because I made it easy. I leaned against the counter, clutching my coffee like it might steady me, and wondered if this was it. If this was the beginning of my real life. The one without performances. Without waiting to be loved the way I needed. The one where I finally stopped asking to be chosen. I looked at the little fig tree I'd bought from the drugstore, barely tall enough to reach my hip, strung with 3 mismatched ornaments and a strand of lights I'd salvaged from last year. It looked pathetic. And then again, it looked like something I had made for myself, without anyone else's help. That mattered, didn't it? The coffee was getting cold in my hands, but I stayed there in the kitchen, watching the quiet tree, wondering why it still hurts so much to be unwanted, even by people who had made a tradition out of forgetting me. Then, as if on cue, the phone buzzed. One message. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. Not even from one of the siblings. It was from my landlord. Just a heads up. Pipe repairs in January may raise the rent a bit. Hope that's okay. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly timed, it felt like the universe itself had a sense of dark, ironic humor. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, because what else was there to say? Merry Christmas, indeed. It was around 3 in the afternoon when the call came. Not a Christmas greeting. Not a last-minute apology or some sheepish voice saying, we just realized, you should come. No, it was my neighbor, Mrs. Ellison. Milla, sweetheart, I know it's Christmas and all, but I just saw someone walking around your side yard. I thought maybe it was you, but they didn't knock. I pressed my forehead against the cold window pane, heart skipping. What? Did they leave? I think so. They were carrying something. Looked like a box. I thanked her, hung up, and opened the front door barefoot, not even bothering with a coat. The air slapped my skin raw, dry December cold, and my breath caught. I stepped outside and saw it instantly, sitting beside the stoop. A box, wrapped in red paper. No bow, no tag, just a single sheet of folded notebook paper taped to the top. My name in lowercase letters. That was all. I crouched down slowly. The wind curled around my ankles like a cat looking for trouble. I touched the box gently. It was cold, heavy, and the handwriting, my breath caught again. It was my mother's. Not the loopy cursive she used on Christmas cards. This was her real writing. The fast, messy script she used on grocery lists, reminders, and things she didn't expect anyone else to see. I peeled the tape back and unfolded the note. Milla, this is all we could find. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe it's too late. But I wanted you to have it. There was no love, Mom. No signature. Just that. I carried the box inside, my fingers numb now, both from the cold and the sudden shift of something I hadn't allowed myself to expect, a breadcrumb, a sliver of acknowledgement. I sat on the living room floor and unwrapped it carefully. Inside were photographs. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Some loose, some in faded envelopes, some tucked into cheap plastic albums. They weren't new. These weren't "we missed you this year" photos. These were old. Old in the way that made your throat ache. Me as a baby, bundled in pink on someone's lap I barely remembered. Me at 5, with cake smeared across my mouth. Me at 12, holding a science fair ribbon, face frozen in mid-blink. And then one that stopped me. Me, in high school, playing piano in the school auditorium. A side angle. Candid. My mother's handwriting on the back. March. She played beautifully. Didn't miss a note. I held it for a long time. I didn't remember her taking that photo. I didn't even remember her being at that recital. I turned to the box and dug deeper. Letters. Some were torn pages from journals. Others were unsent birthday cards. One envelope said simply, 2006. I didn't know what to say. I opened that one. Inside was a card. A picture of a bird flying across a snowy field. Blink. And a sticky note, stuck to the inside flap. We should have come. She needed us, and we didn't come. I don't know how to fix it. There were tears on my cheeks before I realized I was crying. What was this? A confession? A time capsule? A surrender? I sat there on the floor with the box between my knees, the candles still flickering on the counter behind me, and tried to decide if I was angry or grateful. Maybe both. Because it didn't fix anything. The photos didn't make up for the Christmases missed or the apologies never spoken aloud. The letters didn't change the fact that I had spent the past 10 years believing I was just forgettable. But it was something. Proof that somewhere, in some drawer, my name had existed. That I hadn't been invisible all along. And maybe that's what hurt the most, knowing they had seen me and still chosen silence. And yet she left the box. She left it. She walked through the snow, or maybe sent someone else, and left it here with my name taped to the top like it mattered. And I don't know what that means. Not yet, but for the first time in days, I felt something shift inside me. Not peace. Not even forgiveness. Just possibility. A crack in the wall. And I knew this wasn't the end of the story. That box sat on my coffee table for 3 days. I couldn't put it away. I couldn't ignore it either. It just lived there, this quiet, heavy thing in the middle of my life, like a wound I kept bumping into. Every time I passed it, I'd lift one more photograph from the pile. One more note. One more scrap of a history I didn't know had been kept. Some of the photos were stained, worn soft at the edges like they'd been handled too much. Others were pristine. A few had dates. Some didn't. One envelope held nothing but a lock of my baby hair, still golden after all these years, tucked inside a napkin from a diner I didn't remember. My name was written across it like a spell. Milla, 11 months. Why no? Why this year? Why not all the others? It was January 2nd when I finally texted her. Me, got your box. Didn't know you still had those things. She didn't answer. Not that day. Not the next. Not until the evening of the 4th, when a message finally popped up on my screen. Mom, I wasn't sure if I had the right to send them, but I'm glad you opened it. And that was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a careful acknowledgement, like she was afraid if she said too much, she'd scare me away. And honestly, she might have, because I didn't know what I wanted. An apology? An invitation? A time machine? The next day, my brother Jake called out of nowhere. He never calls. Hey, he said, as if we'd talked just last week. Mom said you got the box. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the trees outside, their branches bare and sharp against the pale sky. I did, I said. There was a pause. Look, Milla, I didn't know they told you not to come. I felt my fingers tighten around the edge of the table. Jake, they didn't tell me not to come. They said there was no room. He went quiet again. And then, I didn't know. You didn't ask. He exhaled slowly. I guess I didn't. Something cracked then, not him, not me, but the space between us. The truth had been there all along, hovering just outside the reach of words. And now it was floating between us like smoke, like something neither of us knew how to hold. Did you know Mom kept all those photos? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, he said eventually. But she never showed them to anyone. I didn't know she was going to send them. Why no? Jake's voice dropped to a near whisper. I think she's scared. Of what? Of losing you completely. I stared at the tiny fake Christmas tree still sitting in the corner, half dead now, its battery-powered lights long faded. She already did, I whispered. That night, I opened a letter I'd been avoiding. One folded so many times it was barely holding together. No envelope. Just one sentence at the top. I wrote this after your birthday last year. Milla, I keep telling myself you're strong. That you don't need us the way we think you do. That you've always been the one who knew how to be alone. But I'm starting to wonder if that was just the story I told myself to feel less guilty. The rest was fragments. Regret. Memory. Silence. No resolution. No love, Mom. Just the slow unraveling of a woman who had started to see her daughter not as the strong one, but as the forgotten one. The one they left behind too many times to count. I didn't know what to do with it. I folded it back up. I didn't cry. Not then. But I felt something new. Like a storm was building. Not rage, not anymore. Something colder. Clearer. A reckoning. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. But for truth. Because if they wanted me back in their lives, I needed them to know. I wasn't the easy one anymore. I sent the message at 2:14 a.m. Me, I'll come by this weekend. I think we need to talk. I stared at it for a long time before I hit send. My thumb hovered like it still needed permission. From who? From the girl I used to be, the one who tiptoed around everyone's feelings like they were made of glass, while no one thought twice about stepping all over hers. Send. 2 days later, I was standing outside my childhood home again. The porch had been repainted, the front door was a new color, but everything else, the wind chime, the old rose bush, the way the steps still creaked on the left side, was exactly the same. Mom opened the door before I knocked, as if she'd been standing just behind it the whole time. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just taller now, not in height, but in something harder to measure. In self. In silence survived. Hi, honey, she said softly. I stepped inside. The house was full of warmth. The smell of cinnamon. A pie cooling on the counter. Someone, probably my sister, had arranged branches of pine around the mantel like it was still Christmas. They had made it look beautiful, like it wasn't the same place I'd been quietly erased from. I didn't take my coat off. I got your box, I said. She nodded. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. I wasn't sure you'd want it. Then why send it? Because I was more afraid not to. I sat down in the kitchen, in the chair I used to do my homework in, and looked at her. I need to ask something, and I want you to be honest. She nodded slowly. Why wasn't there room for me? Her face crumpled instantly. No dramatic pause. No excuses. Just the truth, rising up like a wave that had been held back too long. There was, she whispered. There was always room. Her voice cracked. I didn't know if you'd want to come. Not after Thanksgiving. My breath caught. What about Thanksgiving? She looked up at me, eyes red. I saw your face. When everyone was talking over you. When they made fun of your job again. I saw the way you shut down. I saw how no one noticed. Not even me. And when you left early and said you had work in the morning. I knew. I knew you weren't okay. And I did nothing. So your answer was to not invite me? She covered her mouth like the shame had finally caught up to her. I thought you needed space. Or maybe I told myself that to avoid the real answer. Which was. She didn't look away this time. That we failed you. Again. Silence. Real silence. Not the kind that bruises, but the kind that clears a space. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I needed you to see me, I said. Not as the strong one. Not as the one who always lets things slide. Just as your daughter. Someone who matters. You do, she said. You always have. No, I said gently. I mattered when I was useful. When I didn't complain. When I made things easy. But the moment I said, this hurts, you looked away. She was crying now, one hand gripping the chair like it anchored her to the moment. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't want you to fix it, I said. I just wanted you to see it. To sit in it with me. To say, you're right. This is unfair. I'm sorry. She nodded. I am so sorry, Milla. And for the first time in my life, I believed her. Not because of the words, but because of the way she was saying them, without defense, without distance, without trying to make herself the victim. Just sorry. She reached into the drawer and pulled out a small object, a box. The same red paper, but this time a ribbon. I was going to give you this after dinner on Christmas. I changed my mind when we decided not to," her voice faltered. "But it's yours." I opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. On the inside, engraved so tiny I almost missed it. "There's always room." I pressed my fingers to the words, and I let myself cry. Not for pity, not for drama, but because somewhere in this cracked open moment, something had finally landed. The weight of all the years I spent asking for a place at the table, and the even heavier truth, I had always deserved one. I stayed until nightfall, not because we solved everything, but because we didn't pretend to. That was new. We sat in the living room with mugs of tea and no rush to fill the silence. She didn't ask if I'd forgiven her. She didn't push. She just let me be there, finally, simply, completely present. She asked questions this time. Not the shallow kind, but real ones. "Do you still write poetry? What's your favorite place to walk in your neighborhood? What's something you need from me now that I've never given you?" And I answered. Not all of them. Not easily. But I tried. I told her about the night I cried myself to sleep at 13 because they'd left me off the family vacation photos. About the time I broke up with someone I loved because I didn't know how to accept love that didn't feel earned. About how I still double-check the invite list before assuming I'm welcome. And she listened. I could see it in her face, something unlearning itself. Some old version of motherhood falling away, replaced by something quieter, less performative, more real. As I stood to leave, she hugged me. Not the rushed kind. The kind that says, "I see you now. I'm sorry it took so long." And I stood there in it, letting myself be held. Letting the part of me that always felt uninvited soften, just a little. Later, back at my own house, I lit the candle again, winter hearth. Almost finished now. Just wax and memory. I sat in the quiet and watched the flame flicker and thought about what comes next. Not a reunion, not a perfect family photo. Maybe not even a proper apology from everyone else. Some doors might stay closed. But this one, this moment, had opened something in me. The realization that I wasn't unwanted. I was just misunderstood. Ignored. Overshadowed. Forgotten not because I lacked value, but because I had always made it too easy not to look closely. That won't happen again. Because I'm done making myself small to fit other people's comfort. I'm done waiting on permission to take up space in my own life. There will still be hard days. Old habits don't dissolve overnight. But I've seen what happens when I speak the truth, even if my voice shakes. I've seen what one box of forgotten photos can unearth. And I've learned this. Being alone at Christmas doesn't mean being unloved. Sometimes it just means this is where your becoming begins. This year, I didn't get a seat at the table, but I built one. And next year, whether I sit there alone or surrounded by people who finally see me, it will be mine. I will bring the chair. I will set the place. I will light the candle. Because I deserve a life where I don't have to earn my worth. And darling, so do you. You don't need permission to belong. You just need the courage to stop apologizing for taking up space. You are not the leftover. You are the beginning of something true. And it's never, ever too late to come home to yourself.